Welcome in, everybody, to another MLS Monday by Scarves and Spikes. Tyler and Sydney here with you. Sydney, what's up, buddy?
What's up? Let's get going. Ready to get the show rolling here.
You're diving right into
Match
it.
day 8 in the books already.
I know.
I was going to say halfway
wild.
through the season, a fourth of the way through the season, almost.
Yeah, a
Not
quarter
quite
of the way
halfway.
there. No, it's wild to think about.
Yeah.
Got lots to talk about in this one. Obviously, Tommy already over in the chat. He's going to come on a little bit later to help us do the giveaway, but it is the day that we're giving away these amazing Sweetwater 420 Fest tickets, the two VIP tickets for the upcoming 420 Fest this coming weekend. So with that, one, it's technically not too late to enter, but it's VIP all access for the entire weekend, April 18th, 19th, and 20th. And it's you and a buddy if you win.
Anyone you want.
Yeah, whoever you want to bring. If you win the tickets, they're yours. So we will do that closer to the end of the show. But in the meantime, we have some random guy named Brian White to talk about.
I was going to say, I have breaking news. Brian White just scored again.
Again and again.
And again. Let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you this, just to kick us off. Does he belong on the Gold Cup roster? I mean, I saw a tweet from somebody saying that, or X post or whatever it's called, he's the best American striker at this point in time. And at this point, yeah, I mean, but I feel like you can kind of sense where this is going. You have Gold Cup coming up. You have an opportunity if you're a U.S. player to get yourself into that mix. And if you do well in Gold Cup, get yourself a chance to be in the World Cup. So are we willing to have that conversation? He's has some opportunities under Pochettino. Are we willing to have that conversation, that extended conversation, to make him a much bigger part of the U.S. men's national team setup at striker? What do you think?
I mean, I think this is a massive step in the right direction. Like, put your name in the hat. Unfortunately, Mauricio Pochettino was down in Atlanta watching the crap show that happened in Atlanta instead of up there watching Brian White.
Right, up in Vancouver.
Yeah. But I mean, I think you have to be cautious about taking too many answers out of a game where you had 4 goals. That's amazing. That is a feat. Absolutely. However, sometimes they come in bulk like that. They come in waves, right? You get the hat trick. And, I think what Pochettino and I think what any national team coaches are going to want to see is consistency. And I mean, this is definitely a step in the right direction for sure. And I think it definitely puts the eyeballs on him. Now, if he can do, 2, 3, 4 matches in a row of good attacking football, goals, maybe some assists, whatever, then I think definitely like, okay, maybe there's a diamond in the rough there that popped up out of nowhere.
You have to look at him as being the most informed U.S. striker at this point, right? I mean, I'm not talking about his full game at the moment, but I'm just talking about this frame of games, this past few games. He's been about as good in form, or in about as good form as any striker of the U.S. men's national team poll. I mean, you look at Sargent, you look at Pepe, some of those names that are more familiar. They're kind of struggled. Some of them haven't even seen the field all that much. And that's what we want for the U.S. strikers, and really all the U.S. players, is not only to be informed, but to actually get playing time. Here you have Brian White, certainly informed, 10 goals in 13 appearances across all competitions with Vancouver at this point in time, including Champions Cup. You have to at least give him a shot. Like you said, right? You got to keep it going. It can't just be a flash in the pan. It's to show consistent performances to get yourself into the picture fully. But if I'm Pochettino, at this point, I can do a lot worse than Brian White at striker.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all about going with the hot hand, right? And it's a golden opportunity for him, for sure. Yeah. But I think, to your point, yeah, like after the last window, the last international window, I don't think anybody is locked in
Right.
to start. I mean, obviously, you've guys that weren't there, like Jedi, left back, and I
Yeah.
mean, you have a couple that are going to be staples, Pulisic, right? But that was an embarrassment for the men's national team, and
Yeah.
the striker position has always been a struggle going back years and years. I mean, go back to the most recent World Cup, and you just couldn't quite get that guy up there that was going to make something happen. And if all of a sudden Brian White has found a new level of Super Saiyan that he has decided to conjure up at any given moment, then hey,
Yeah.
it's Brian White. It's Brian White. Let's go.
I hope that's the case. But no, it's great to see him in form if you're a Vancouver fan, and really if you're a U.S. Men's National League fan. But looking at Vancouver as a whole, they win again, Tyler, staying at top of the Supporters Shield standings, 5-1 against Austin FC. And tells me two things. Number one, Austin FC still has a lot of work to do under Nicolas Deves in his first few games as head coach. Looks like they were doing well, but then have hit a rough patch this early portion of the season. So maybe not ready to pencil them in as a playoff team at this point, and that's where you are right now, this point of the season. But Vancouver, I mean, my goodness, they just beat Pumas midweek in Champions Cup. They come back home from Mexico, back to Canada, and they play Austin FC out of the park. Also, there's a mouse on the field, Tyler. A mouse on the field that Brad Stuber was able to catch. Probably the only thing he was able to catch all night, but
You've
that's
been waiting
neither
on
here
that.
nor there.
You've been waiting on
Yeah. No, but as a whole, Vancouver, I mean, again, winning 5-1. And, we talked about last week whether San Diego are the most complete team in MLS. I would say Vancouver at this point in time. And they're doing this without Brian White, or they're doing this without Ryan Gauld. He's been injured. He hasn't played in the past few weeks. But he gets back. I feel like the sky's the limit for this Vancouver side. It really is.
Supporter Shield leaders.
The Supporters Shield leading Vancouver Whitecaps. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild to me. I mean, again, we've been saying it now for weeks. Dark horse, they're not a dark horse anymore. I think everybody kind of realized, like, hey, Vancouver's here to play. And a lot of teams in Mexico are also thinking the same thing. And I mean, it's good for them. I will say my one gripe about this most recent match with Brian White is you score 4 goals. How do you not get a perfect 10 on FOTMob?
What was his score on FOTMob?
9.9.
Oh,
and I guess it was because of the
at this
yellow.
point.
I guess it was because of the yellow. He did get a yellow, but it's just like,
whatever.
dude, what are we doing, man? Like, just give him the 10. That's just embarrassing.
It's the principle of the thing, right?
Yeah, it's so annoying. But man, yeah, Vancouver, they're just on one, and it's fun to see. I enjoy it.
And just quickly looking at their remaining schedule or their upcoming matches at St. Louis, who have kind of hit a rough spot. We'll talk about them a little bit later. And at Minnesota, who are one of the surprise teams. Maybe not a surprise, but another team that's informed, not as informed as Vancouver, but pretty informed side in Minnesota United. I mean, these are 2 winnable games for Vancouver, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get 10 matches in, and this team, the only loss so far has been to the Chicago Fire on March 22nd. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you win these next 2 against St. Louis and Minnesota. You come back home, you have 2 against RSL and LAFC, then you go to Austin, then you go to RSL. So that's your next 5-6 matches coming up. I mean, out of that, I mean, who legitimately can beat this Vancouver Whitecaps side? And maybe be a little bit of a prisoner of the moment here, but these are 6 winnable games for Vancouver. 4 of them are on the road, right? But I mean, this team has proven they can win on the road so far this season. So, I mean, when will this team lose again?
You've now cursed them, though. You said that famous line. Oh, these are winnable games.
They are.
They are. But you said it. So, no, it just I do agree with you. I think they're playing soccer that is, like I said last week, it's disciplined. It works. Maybe not always the prettiest, but, it's also not incredibly boring. It's not like straight defensive oriented and you're only hitting on the counter. I mean, they play really well. And like you said a minute ago, doing it without Gauld is a big deal. Doing it against Liga MX teams and good ones at that in Champions Cup, and then every 3 or 4 days you're playing a soccer match. Like, the resiliency of this team is insane, and
Yeah.
I just think it's impressive. I've been very, very impressed by Vancouver.
Yeah,
it's
and
winnable like playing New England. That's where I was.
yeah, exactly. No, but yeah, they've been in terrific form, and we'll see how long it continues. Tyler, Sweetwater Brewery, sponsor of Scarves and Spikes, 420 Fest we mentioned, of course, coming up this weekend, giving away tickets, VIP tickets to the Sweetwater 420 Fest, April 18th to the 20th. If you are there, you'll be able to watch the Atlanta United match. Air-conditioned bathrooms, a private bar, a lot of great stuff, a lot of great benefits with these tickets. We'll be giving them away here on the show. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, it'll be too late. It'll be already over. You can listen to see if you want.
Next time.
But yeah, thanks to Sweetwater Brewery for their support of Scarves and Spikes. We really do appreciate their support. Go to sweetwaterbrew.com. Go to 420fest.com. Follow them at Sweetwater Brew. Follow them at 420 Fest for all the information on Sweetwater 420 Fest, April 18th to the 20th. And of course, scarvesandsspikes.com. Release Atlanta United news analysis and opinion. Has a link to our store as well. And of course, patreon.com/scarves and spikes. And all that good stuff.
Now, we have a player who started off the week on the East Coast and then ended up, technically, I guess they consider it the Midwest now. I don't know. Well, I had this rant a couple of weeks ago and I hate it. But Daniel Gazdag.
Yeah.
Philadelphia's, if I'm not mistaken, his all-time leading scorer. And the Columbus Crew came and plucked him away. This was exactly 1 week ago. I think the news dropped right before we went on the air last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. Yep, it did.
Yeah. So, and he played. He played well against St. Louis. And, I think it's just a smart move by Columbus. I think Philly lost. Now, to be fair, Gazdag wanted more money.
Yeah.
Philly, as usual, didn't want to give it to him. Can't hate on Philly too much because they're winning as well.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, for now. But Columbus came out, I think, the better end of this one for sure.
Oh, 100%. They needed, I'm not going to say replacement for Cucho Hernandez because Gazdag and Cucho are two totally different players, but they needed a number 10. They needed a player that can create in the middle. And definitely no disrespect that they had already, but Daniel Gazdag makes a really good Columbus Crew team that much better. I already felt that they would be top 4 of the East going away. This reinforces them even more. The sooner he can build chemistry with that Crew team, the better. He came in at the halftime, Tyler, and he didn't score, but obviously he trained with the team just only this past week, hasn't been fully integrated to the team, integrated into the system that Nancy prefers. So there's going to be a little of that learning curve, but as soon as he gets his legs underneath him, as soon as he trains with the team more, as soon as he integrates himself into that Crew roster, he's going to be a terrific player. He's going to show the quality that he showed with the Union. And by the way, the Union, still can't wrap my mind around that. It's a business move on their part, but you said it, Tyler. He's the club's all-time leading scorer. He means so much to that club. He's been there for several years, and he's on a contract year. He has an option for 2026, so he's still under the Union's control, and they trade him to the Crew. Union fans, I have every reason to be upset with the move. It's a player who has been a cornerstone of this club for several years, and it's hard to believe he's in Columbus, but here we are. Yeah. And just to kind of sidebar off of that, this is the player trade, cash for player trade system at work. This wouldn't have happened, or it would have been tougher to make this move before this season, before the cash for player trade system came into place. We saw Vander being traded to Portland through it. We saw other players in the offseason, and we see Gazdag being traded to Columbus as a result of it. who will be that next player? Who will be that next domino to fall in MLS to be traded to another team?
Your
Will they
Gazdag
catch or
definitely
play
wasn't
trade system?
on the radar for me for
Yeah,
that.
no, for sure. But again, I mean, he's in a contract year, and the union had a decision. We either pay this man what he feels he's worth, or we get rid of him. And they got rid of him, and not a good look for them, among other things. And if you look at the roster, next guy up, I think Mikel Ua, who is also in a contract year. What will they do with him? Do they sign him? Do we bring him back, or do they opt to trade him? I mean, they'll have to trade him because if they don't re-sign him, he'll walk away for nothing. They could sign him in the offseason, but he's a valuable player to the team. But then again, they just let Daniel Gazdag go to a conference rival. So
Yeah. I mean, he stepped in. He immediately I don't necessarily want to say made a difference, but he played good. Like, he played well, right?
yeah,
He popped in, like you said, at the half. Accurate passes, 32 out of 33, 97%. He
yeah,
had a very, very small expected assist. He created a chance. 2 touches in the opposition box. 3 passes into the final third. Doing a lot of things that a number 10, or any midfielder should be doing. So,
yeah,
I mean, to have that kind of whirlwind of a week, and then for him to get there and be able to, step in the way that he did, I mean, that's applause worthy for sure. And then, like, the overarching, I think, story of that game was just Columbus is a freaking good football team. We know this. Nazi's a good
yeah,
coach. St. Louis punches them in the mouth 6 minutes in, and just a weird goal, right? But it broke Klaus's, scoring drought, I think, going back to May of last year, which is
yeah,
wild to me.
yeah.
But they hit them in the mouth early, and of course they're playing in St. Louis, so it's an away game. It's never easy, right?
Right.
And then
Especially in front of
Columbus,
that crowd.
yeah, yeah, for real. And it was a good environment yesterday. I mean, hearing it on TV and everything, but Columbus claws their way back into it, just like they always freaking do. And it is so hard to count this Columbus team out, and it's wild to think that we're now, I think, this is year 3 under
Yeah,
Nazi, right?
yeah.
And it's still just chugging along, I
No.
mean, are they always at the top of the Supporter Shield standings? No, but they're consistently up there in the top 2 or 3.
One of 2 unbeaten teams in MLS still, along with Miami. And again, I mentioned it earlier, Columbus, I felt, were always going to be in the top 4 when it's all said and done. And again, Gazdag certainly reinforces that lineup even more. A good lineup made even better. But you mentioned, Tyler, they gave up a goal within the first 10 minutes to Klaus, and they responded. Not every team in MLS can do that. To go down trailing in front of a hostile environment like Energizer Park, who in year 3 have become one of the biggest home field advantages from a crowd standpoint in MLS. But not every team can do that. How many teams in MLS would just fade away and just wilt under that pressure in front of that crowd? And for Columbus to come back speaks to the culture that Nancy has installed in that team and the belief that they have in each other, right? And I don't think anybody was surprised that they came back from that deficit. I mean, it's 1-0 down, so it's not a big deficit, but the crew continued to be the crew. And like you said, under Nancy, this is year 3, and this team continues to be one of the top teams in MLS. Won 9 games last year, in 2024. Won away from home, I should say, in 2024. So it's not like this team doesn't know how to win away from home. They've done it numerous times, and they did it again against St. Louis. We'll talk about St. Louis in just a little bit, but classy win for the crew again at Energizer Park in
Yeah.
St. Louis.
Yeah. I mean, they did the job, and a lot of teams would be absolutely right to be envious of
Yeah,
Columbus, just in general. I'm not talking about,
yeah,
like, recently. I mean, over the past 3 years. Um, and then, jumping over to St. Louis, that's 4 in a row that they've lost.
yeah,
Going back to March 15th, they won against Seattle 1-0, and since then it's been a 1-0 loss to Philly, a 1-0 loss to
yeah,
Austin, 2-0 to SKC. That was that game where we were kind of waiting to see what SKC was going to do. And then, of course, last night, 2-1 to Columbus. So,
Right.
I mean, going back a month, we were talking about St. Louis and how defensive oriented they are and
Right.
just what they are as a team. And I think they're kind of showing that, like, because the Klaus goal yesterday, that was, if I'm being honest, it was a little fluky, right? So, like, this is not like a really good open play goal that just makes you
Yeah.
feel good about the team. You don't really have anything to show as far as goals going back for a long time. And if your ability to keep clean sheets is finally getting broken through and you
Yep.
can't score goals, that's going to end up being a very, very long season for St. Louis fans.
Yeah. 5 goals this year for St. Louis. Only New England and Montreal with 4 have fewer. And we talked about earlier this season, right? When we were talking about all the defenses holding up. We talked about they can't score. They can't put the ball in the back of the net. They at least saw Klaus score, but that broke a streak of 3 matches in a row without a goal for St. Louis. So scoring has been a big problem for them. They've been shut out 5 times through 7 matches, or I'm sorry, 5 times through 8 matches already, and that's not good. If you want to be competitive in MLS, you have a good defense, but if you're not putting the ball in the back of the net, it's going to catch up to you. It's going to put more pressure on that attack to perform. You mentioned Klaus hadn't scored in a while. It's going to put more pressure on Klaus to score, more pressure on your forwards to score and perform, and maybe it's a little bit slippage of St. Louis. I mean, they have to look themselves in the mirror and saying, hey, what do you do from here? We're losing for 4 straight. We started off 4 in a row unbeaten. What does Olaf Melberg do to get this team performing from an attacking standpoint? Mentioned earlier, they have Vancouver coming up. They have to go to Vancouver.
Good
That
luck.
could be a bloodbath unless their defense really buckles down.
Yeah.
But it's tough going for St. Louis, and it's year 1 for Melberg, so he's going to get some time to integrate himself into the team and get the team playing to his preferred tactics. But you have to look yourself in the mirror saying, hey, we got to get things going in a hurry, because if we don't, we're going to fall farther and farther back into the standings, and all the goodwill that we've gathered over the first 4 matches, when we went 2 wins, no losses, 2 ties, is going to be gone. So not a good loss for a St. Louis team that needed a win to continue to build their confidence in that year 1 under Olaf Melberg.
Yeah. They need a connector, and Klaus has to step up his game for sure. I mean, like, it's great that he got one yesterday for sure. But again, that's one of those kind of fluky ones. You don't have anybody that's consistently sending in service. And then, for all that we talked about the defense yesterday, there were moments where they were absolutely walked all over and walked through. The defense just, honestly, it was like watching Columbus play against training cones. Like, they was just passing through them. There was no, defensive, steadfast kind of, like what you consider parking the bus or whatever you want to call it. It just wasn't good. And like I said, if you can't get that under control, if that's your game plan, and then try to hit on the counter, then it's going to be a very, very long season. So so that's St. Louis and Columbus. That was the Sunday night soccer game, which was fun. Earlier in the day, we had Portland Timbers and SKC. And I guess you could look at this game and be like, hey, SKC, you're actually still scoring goals. But Portland Timbers
scored more goals.
Knocked him out 42. Definitely scored more.
Yeah.
It's wild. I mean, Portland, I don't know. What have they figured out?
Well, I mean, you look at their schedule, though. I'm a little skeptical of Portland, because looking at the teams that they've beaten over this 4-match winning streak, Colorado, who's a good team, 3-0. That's a good win. That's a classy win for the Timbers. But then they beat Houston 3-1. They drew Austin 0-0 down there at Q2, and then beating Sporting Kansas City 4-2. Yeah, it's not a murderous row of opponents that they've beaten or drawn, to be honest with you. So That's why I'm kind of skeptical of them. They play LAFC at home next time out. Then they travel to the LA Galaxy. Then they travel to San Jose before the return fixture against Sporting Kansas
Might as well just
City.
live in California for a while.
Yeah, they just get some beachfront property there,
Vacation
spend the next
house.
few weeks. Yeah, exactly. But no, 3 state matches against California opponents, come home to take on Sporting Kansas City again, a return fixture, and then they go to RSL. So I feel like these next 3 matches for Portland Timbers can really tell you a lot about who the Portland Timbers really are. LAFC, they aren't a great team, but they aren't a terrible team. So I feel if you get a result out of that, you're in good shape. LA, who have been a crap show all season long, and then San Jose, who have kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster. Where his first few matches of the season, can't really put a finger on them at this yet under Bruce Arena. So I'm kind of withholding my judgment on them until I see a little bit more from them. Their only other win outside of Colorado, Houston, and Sporting Kansas City is against Austin. So you look at other results, Cascadia Derby to kick off the season against Vancouver. That's a 4-1 loss. We already talked about that. Lost to Nashville on the road. And then no losses outside of that. I want to see more. I want to see more from Portland. Kevin Kelsey scored a brace. Good to see him scoring for Portland. But I just want to see more from this team.
Yeah. And I mean, LAFC, that's one of those opponents where take away the historical factor of it and how
Yeah.
these teams just tend to have like some freaking wild matches when they play each other.
Yeah.
Take all that away, LAFC on any given day can be really good. Like right now, they're in a rough run of form, coming off of a heartbreaker against Miami, and I mean, you've got kind of this team we've talked about that like the identity just doesn't really show itself, and they're so up and down all the time. But you look at again that historical factor of it. I mean, going back to last year, the last time they played was almost a year ago. That was April 27th. That was a 3-2 win for LA. Before that, I mean, it was like a week and a half before. 2-2 draw. Before that in 2023, 2-0. I mean, these games don't really have a lack of goals at all.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you got to go all the way back to March of 2022 to find a 1-1 draw.
Yeah.
So they always have some wild ones. They're always fun to watch. And so, like you said, Portland, this is a game that could be a big confidence boost if they can head down and make it happen. But you've beat some okay teams. Beating SKC,
Right.
as an Atlanta United mainly podcast talking about this coming off the New England match. Say this with caution, but I mean, you beat SKC 4-2. They just fired their coach, of 1,800 years. So there's factors to consider, but it's nice to see them, like you said, kind of getting some things together. It seems like they're playing a little more cohesively. You can see the chemistry developing week after week, which I think is a really good sign for any team. And if you don't see that with certain teams, I'll go back to Atlanta, then it's concerning 8 weeks in, right? I don't think you're seeing that with the Timbers right now.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to throw out at Anthony as well. Anthony leads the team with 4 goals. If they get him going, I mean, he's going to be a very big piece of what Portland do as well. They brought him in as the striker. Didn't score against Sporting Kansas City, but has 4 goals to his name in 2025. Back-to-back matches, so without a goal. He had a brace against Houston, scored against Colorado, and scored in the season opener against Vancouver. So 4 goals and an assist so far in 2025. Career high last year was 6. So if they can get him rolling, get him going, this is going to be a very good Portland Timbers team. But again, I have to see more. I have to see them play out a little bit more of their schedule. By the way, you gotta beat who you beat. You gotta play who you play. I mean, you can't change that. And whoever's on your schedule, you got to play them. And maybe a bit of a weak schedule for Portland coming up or previously, but they've held out well. Now it's going to get a little bit tougher as we get into April, May. How can they hold up is a big question. This was a team last year, Tyler, who was terrible at the end of the season. They just went out with a whimper in the wild card match and essentially backed their way into the playoffs before that. So a lot of pressure on Portland to get things going under year 2 of Phil Neville.
Yeah, for sure. I'd said last week on Soccer Down Here that I'm not sold on the Timbers actually making the playoffs. And then they go and do something like this. But again, it's SKC. But their run of form, I just don't know that it's something that they can sustain. They're trending in the right direction. Everything I just said is true. But I'm curious if they can continue to trend in that right direction for, the remaining, 28 weeks
26.
or 26 weeks.
Let me do some quick math in my
Yeah,
head.
math I'm not good at.
Yeah.
All right, so
what's 0 plus 0, by the way? Kind of segue.
Yeah, that's some math I can do. 0. There were a record number of 0-0 draws this weekend. And to name them off real quick, starting back at the beginning of match day 8, Toronto, Minnesota, 0-0. Orlando Red Bulls, 0-0. And then you jump over to yesterday. Where'd it go?
Chicago, Miami.
Chicago, Miami.
Forever record crowd, by the way.
In front of a record crowd,
at Soldier Field.
Out of those 3, I'm trying to think of where I got that record number from. I might have misread something from MLS.
Is that a record, by the way?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
It's a lot
because now I'm second guessing some things.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Last night, Chicago Fire and Miami. So, I think that one is the one that stands out the most, right? Because you had that record in front of everybody and their mother at Soldier Field.
Yeah.
And both teams had opportunities. This was not necessarily Chicago, quote unquote, parking the bus against Messi. I mean, now they did a lot of defending for sure, but Chicago had some opportunities. Chicago had a moment at the very end of the game that would have sealed the deal with Jonathan Bamba, and he just couldn't put it away. But do you feel at this point, 8 weeks in MLS and then, countless Champions Cup games at this point, are the older legs of Miami maybe starting to catch up with them a little bit?
I don't. It may be. It's still early. It's still 8 matches in, but if you look at Miami this time last year, they feel like they were unbeatable. They still haven't lost a match though. They haven't been beat in 2025 in MLS play, that is. But you look at the last 2 matches, 1-1 against TFC, a team that we thought would be kind of a name your scoreline match for Inter Miami, right? Then they come to Chicago, they get their chances, they get their opportunities, but it's a 0-0 draw. And it's a day where you expect more from your stars and you didn't get it. But if you look at even further back, the start of this winning streak, they blew out. Well, they had a 4-match winning streak, I should say. They blew out Houston 4-1. But you look at the next 3 matches: 1-0 against Charlotte, 2-1 against Atlanta United, 2-1 against Philly. So the goals aren't coming as much as we thought they'd come with this team. Sure, they're coming in timely moments, but just 12 goals, I say in quotes, just 12 goals through 8 matches for Inter Miami. I think Inter Miami fans have to look at this team and say, this is kind of a disappointment for them. Sure, they're still in Champions Cup, and that's still a possibility for them to win the whole thing. But if you look at how things have gone in MLS play, the balance of it, they'd have expected much better. They'd have expected some of those draws to be wins, 4-0-3, at least 1 or 2 of those draws to be wins. So, yeah, they're unbeaten. Yeah, they still have their stars in the field, Messi, Suarez. I don't know. I just don't feel this is the Miami team that we saw for much of last year. I'm just not all the way convinced by them. How about you?
I mean, yeah, and it's kind of wild, that we can say stuff like that considering everything you just said about, stats and all.
Right.
I kind of agree though. I mean, I think you'll really start to see how things play out once Champions Cup is over. Omar made a good point in the chat. They've had to play LAFC midweek. They kind of bunkered a little bit. They didn't do well at it. Chicago had the better expected goals. Like,
Yeah.
stats were in favor of Chicago. Granted, they were playing at home. Also, granted, half of that crowd was there to see Messi anyway. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't know how much of a home field advantage it felt like, but I think you're going to end up looking at a similar problem to what happened last year, and nobody's ever going to admit this at Miami, but I think you have to lend a lot of what happened in the playoffs last year against Atlanta to these guys just kind of running out of juice. I mean, you saw it on the pitch during that 3-game series. Like, there were moments where they just couldn't hang.
Yeah.
Talent, yeah, infinitely better than any team in MLS. We know that, but you just can't run like you could at 26 at 36. It just doesn't
That's for
work the
sure.
same. So you stretch that out over a long period of time, and yeah, it can catch up. And then you throw in Champions Cup and how well they're doing this year in it, and that's a big factor. So I think I'm going to save a ton of judgment until after Champions Cup is over, no matter what happens with them in it. But on the inverse side of that, Chicago, I mean, 0-0 draw. They had a 2-1 loss to Red Bulls. Before that,
Yeah.
it was a 1-1 draw against Montreal, and then 3-1 over none other than Vancouver,
Right.
and then 2-1 over Toronto. So, I mean, what's going on with Berhalter? Is it
I mean,
has he gotten this
at least
team
they aren't
trending in the right
losses.
direction?
Yeah, I was gonna say those draws. At least they aren't
Yeah.
losses. But I said it when he was hired. This is a reclamation project or redemption project for Greg Berhalter, considering what happened with the U.S. men's national team. Really took them as far as he could take them, as far as they could go. I don't think he would have been able to push them over the top. But that's kind of been the story, more or less, of his coaching career. He has Chicago about as good a position as they've been in some time. Now it's 8 matches and the bottom could fall out, but as we sit here and talk, Tyler, they're in playoff places, which is more than we can say for a lot of teams. I mean, they're in 12 points. They're not a great team by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like the bar was really low for this team. And you look at Greg Berhalter, he is not only the head coach, but the sporting director of this team. So he's going to be under a lot of pressure to make this team better, to bring in players that fit his playing style and get this team back to the playoffs where they haven't been in a while. Like I said in the past, this was a club that was a laughingstock or has been a laughingstock in MLS. But before that, this was a really good team. This was one of the best teams in the league year in and year out. They have both DP slots filled in Bamba and Kuipers, of course. But if you look at their U22 players, as you bring in another U22 to help this team in the next transfer window, the summer transfer window, depending on where they stand, where they are in the standings. So you have a little bit of flexibility for Greg Berhalter. Great, you have just under $450,000 in GAM available. So maybe you have not as much space as you would like, but maybe you can swing a trade, free up some cash, and bring in a player under that U22 slot or a TAM slot to improve this team. So they're not there yet, but they're a lot better than they've been in
Yeah.
previous years. And credit to
Yeah, it's
Berhalter for
definitely
that.
trending in the right direction, which is, I mean, like
Yeah.
you said, they were at rock bottom for a while. I saw in the chat, Colonel definitely wants to bring Andrew Gutman back to Atlanta. The thing is, then you got to move Pedro
Yeah.
Amador. But I would love a guy
Yeah.
of Andrew Gutman's expected dog to come back to Atlanta for sure, because Atlanta needs it.
XD.
Yeah, that XT.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
for sure. So before we jump over to the next one, and then I see Nick in the chat talking. He saw his first Austin FC kit in the wild at Dogwood Fest this year.
Yeah.
It is funny how, like, when you see an MLS kit, whether it's in Atlanta or wherever you live, especially if it's not your team, it just stands out like a sore thumb. I'll always keep a counter every time we go to Orlando a lot, and every time I go to Orlando, I
Yeah.
keep a counter of how many Orlando kits I see and then how many
Right.
Atlanta United kits I see.
Yeah. No,
And it's
exactly.
always more Atlanta United kits.
Yeah. No, it's fun. Yeah, it's always fun to see Atlanta kids. Always fun to see any kid in the wild
Yeah,
for sure. The
means
more
the
fun to
game's
see
growing.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So Tyler, there are two winless teams left in MLS: the LA Galaxy and the Montreal or CF Montreal. I was in the Montreal Canadiens. I
I think
got
you're for
hockey
the
on the mind.
impact.
Yeah, the Montreal Impact. No, but LA Galaxy still winless. They drew, so they didn't lose. So that's good progress for them, I guess. They saw Jorgensen sent off though in the 28th minute after Houston went up 1-0, but Fagundes scoring um, with LA down to 10 men. So credit to them for that. Montreal continued to be a tire fire. They lost to Charlotte 1-0. It's kind of watching that match, and they did not generate a whole lot. 2 shots on goal, both coming after the 70th minute, and had a ton of shots that didn't really challenge Christian Kalina. So I have to ask you, between the Galaxy and CF Montreal, who wins first?
I mean, off the rip, without looking ahead, I still think the Galaxy wins first. I mean,
Yeah.
they've I just think they have a much higher upside, all things considered. Um, but let's kind of look at where Montreal coming off 3 in the past 5, 3 losses, 2
Yeah.
draws. Their next one's against Orlando.
Mhm.
Sorry. Um,
Won't be next week.
yeah. Then they play Red Bulls.
Yeah.
So maybe they have maybe they have a chance in the Canadian Championship against Toronto on, 4 days rest. And then they play Philly, and then they play New
Yeah.
York City, and then they play Columbus, and then they play Toronto again in MLS. So that's on May 17th. Maybe on May 17th they can put one past Toronto in MLS play. I don't
Yeah.
they're not a good football team.
No.
And it's frustrating when you go back again from an Atlanta perspective to go back to opening day and you look at like the goal they scored 2 and gave Atlanta problems to a degree.
Right.
And then look at what they've done since then. It's been miserable to
Yeah.
be a CF Montreal fan.
Yeah.
Um,
So real quick, they scored twice against Atlanta. Since then, they've scored twice in the last 7 matches combined.
yeah,
4 in a row. 4 in a row, they were shut out. Scored against Chicago in the draw. Scored against Columbus in the loss, and then were shut out again against Charlotte. So 2 goals against Atlanta. 2 goals since then. I mean, that's yikes.
yeah. And then the inverse of that. So you're talking about the Galaxy. I mean, like you said, they play Austin this coming week. That's to me, that's winnable, even though Austin, I mean, statistically, way higher. I think it's possible. Then you have against Portland and everything we just said about Portland. I don't know that the Galaxy are going to be able to handle them,
Right.
all things considered right now. But then you have SKC on May 4th. That's winnable.
Yeah.
So I'll give it to LA Galaxy.
I still think once LA gets healthy, they'll be a much better team. Problem is, it's 8 matches in. I mean, it's still early in the season, but how long do you wait for this team to get healthy? I don't think that Greg Vandy's gonna be fired at the end of this year or during this year. I mean, you just won MLS Cup. I don't
There's
think
too
you're
many
gonna get set.
factors to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the front office understands that he was dealt a bad hand when it comes to injuries. They really could give him the patience to ride this thing out and see what happens. But it's just bad for the Galaxy. Unfortunately, they had a ring giveaway for the first replica ring giveaway for their first 10,000 fans inside the stadium over there at Dignity Health Sports Park, and there was some issues with that, and fans were upset. I saw on social media. So things aren't good from a on the field standpoint, and things aren't good from a promotional standpoint for the Galaxy. So a lot going wrong there. Montreal, I think, just needs a full institutional cultural rebuild. Joey Saputo is very impatient when it comes to managers. Part of that
Stupid.
is part of that is that Italian influence. He owns teams in Italy as well as Serie A, and I feel like a lot of that influence is rubbing off on him when it comes to MLS. And I just look at that organization, top to bottom, just needs a big, big change. They ran off Wilfred Nancy. You see what he's done
Yep.
in Columbus.
Dumb move.
Yeah,
Also.
yeah, exactly. Laurent Courtois, I feel like he should have had at least the year to turn this team around. They did go to the playoffs, the wildcard match, but you saw some quality in that team last year. But then Joseph Martinez was sent to San Jose, or he signed with San Jose, I should say, and you brought in Vrioni. Vrioni, I will say this: when Vrioni came in, he saw some quality that wasn't there. I mean, he's been injured for most of the season. When he came in, you saw some quality moments that he was able to provide for this team. So maybe he's the piece that this team needs to be better. But just from an overall standpoint, front office, it's just very bad in Montreal and just needs a top to bottom change big time. You
Yeah.
can't fire the owner.
No.
But the owner
I'm
needs to
sure a
look
lot
at
of
it.
fans would like to.
Owner needs to look at himself. Joey Saputo needs to look at himself and get this team fixed. I
Yeah.
think he said, I stepped away from it. I shouldn't have. He needs to stop treating this club as an afterthought and really put his head down and make this team better.
Yeah, because you have a fan base up there that actually wants it to be successful, right? Like this is not a dwindling fan base in the sense that they just don't have anybody. Like it just needs some good time,
Yeah.
some progression to show the fans that they care. And you just don't have that right now. I mean, that team is playing like a team that's being treated like a redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
Because it is. And if they can make a couple of moves, shouldn't have fired Courtois, but whatever, you did. I think it was a mistake. Now you got to go find somebody who is going to inherit an absolute dumpster fire. But when you do that, you can't just say, all right, I hired a coach. You need players, you need a revamp of a lot. And if there's any team, maybe DC is up there as well, any team in MLS right now that the ownership needs to hire the coach and then let that coach build the team the way that he wants or she, it's Montreal.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I hate to say it, going back to Nancy, I hate to say it, but when they hired him, it was a bit of a cheap move there. I mean, he was already in their organization.
Yeah.
With their academy, with their younger players, they promoted him to the first team, and he worked wonders with them. We all know the story. But kind of a diamond in the rough, kind of fell into success when it comes to CF Montreal. He wasn't a sought-after product in MLS. Again, was with their youth squad, got hired after a number of years with their academy. He got bumped up after Thierry Henry stepped aside. So maybe just lucked into it. Nancy ended up being an incredible coach. Didn't get on with the ownership. He's in Columbus. He has an MLS Cup to his credit and almost has a Champions Cup. So
yeah,
they are ruining that decision every single day.
Immensely. So before we jump over to our Sweetwater matches to watch, one other thing that's going on this week, and it's still early, obviously, it just started, is the Generation Adidas Cup, MLS Next. That's going on. For all the things that we said about St. Louis earlier, guess who they beat this morning?
Who did they beat?
Bayern Munich.
Oh,
yeah.
Look at them.
The U16s, they took down Bayern Munich. So if you've ever had a chance to watch that tournament, you know how fun it can be. And it's going on this week. So definitely jump over and check it out, because there's lots of young talent there that you'll see that you can then follow back to that team. And again, from an Atlanta perspective, this is where you would see a couple of years ago, the Dominic Chonquis, the Ashton Gordons, the Cooper Sanchez is like Noah Cobb, even to a degree. Like these are guys that, even before their time with the twos, this is in the academy and they're coming up and
Yeah.
they're, balling out for their teams. And it's different age groups, right? Because it's all the academy levels. And it's really fun to watch. It's really fun to keep an eye on. And of course they can't show every match because there's tons of them. But
Right.
this is MLS teams, their academies, and you have
Versus the
international teams. You
world.
have Munich. There's a lot of Liga MX teams there. There's so much talent that comes to this tournament. It's really, really, really impressive, and it's really, really worth watching.
And matches are what, on YouTube? Are they on MLS Season Pass? Where can you find matches?
They've been in the past on YouTube. I know at one point they were showing them on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
But let me see if they've got a list. But
Yeah, it looks like it's on YouTube. 28 matches on YouTube. I have the press release pulled up.
there it is.
But yeah, several teams in this field, like you said, Bayern Munich, Club America, Inter Milan, Leicester City, PSV from the Netherlands, Monterrey, Palmeiras from Brazil, Man City, just full of teams that are of repute. So April 16th is the round of 16. April 17th quarterfinals, April 19th semifinals, and April 20th are the finals. So those are on YouTube. Many of the matches are on YouTube. So definitely check that out, and maybe you can see the MLS players of the future come through during the
We're seeing it
generation
right now. We're actually
Adidas Cup.
Speaking of, like Zilf saying, in the chat, he can confirm he saw Dominic Chonquis first with the U15s versus Tigres in the Generation Adidas Cup.
Yeah.
And here we are a couple of years later, and we're about to talk to him tomorrow as first team media. And that's wild to think, like how quickly it can happen, and it's just there's always something about like the lower tier and like the youth football that's just so much fun to me because you're not watching, this is not rec, U8 soccer.
Right.
These are kids, young men who are on their way up and they're being coached by, properly run academies and things are going in the right direction. And you get to see them against talent that they're not going to be playing against anytime soon. And so it's just really, and it's also neat to see how the different countries, how their players have kind of, evolved over time and kind of the philosophies that they take as they come up through those youth ages. So it's impressive. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, it is.
Once a year.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do our giveaway in a moment. We're going to get Tommy in here just a little bit to help us out with that. But before we do, what is your match day 9 match to watch?
Our Sweetwater
Brewery
match to watch.
Sweetwater Brewing Company matches to
Yes.
watch. Match to watch.
My first thought was Columbus and Miami. I think that's good. I think it's worth it. But that's not my one. I think I am intrigued in a weird way. This is my Snoop Dogg, uncles fighting in the parking lot match to watch of the week.
Drunk uncles.
Chicago and Cincinnati. I'm intrigued by what Chicago's doing. I want to see what they do coming off of, a little bit of a confidence builder, I think, against Miami. And then Cincinnati. Where are they at in terms of like getting their I feel like Cincinnati is teetering on the edge of either falling apart or getting it all right.
Right.
I don't think they're going to stay just kind of like, okay, kind of holding the line. I think it's going to be one or the other. So I want to see just kind of maybe some people call it like a mid battle between two kind of mid teams maybe at the time, but I think there might be some fun in this one.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I feel like Columbus, Miami is kind of the low-hanging fruit one, but I'm going to go with Charlotte FC versus San Diego FC. I think that's a very intriguing matchup between Charlotte, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. One of the best teams in the Eastern Conference versus the expansion side has really punched above its weight so far. Zaha should be back for that. He missed the match against Montreal with surgery, so he should be back against San Diego. But again, really intrigued to see how that one will play out at Bank of America Stadium. Charlotte, again, have impressed in Dean Smith's second season in charge, second in the East in points through 8 matches. And they are in really good form. So Charlotte versus San Diego is my one. And of course, you have Columbus, Miami. That could be Eastern Conference final, really, when it's all said and done. So those are my 2, I guess.
I like it.
But my 1 is Charlotte, San Diego.
Yeah. To be fair, Charlotte, San Diego, before I saw it in the notes where you had put it already, that was mine too, for sure. Like, I think that one's very intriguing. For all the reasons you just mentioned. So with that, Tommy also has one as well.
Yes.
Hello, Tommy.
What's up,
hey,
Tommy?
mate.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
Doing well.
What is your Sweetwater Brewing match day match to watch?
Well, it's the same as what Sydney said. It's Columbus and Miami, but it's for a unique reason for me. It's about 30 minutes down the street from me.
Yeah, that's right. At Brown Stadium.
One of the reasons why it interests me is to see how the fans are at that game, because the Crew fans are not happy. They are not happy at all. And we've talked about this early on in the season. We had a friend, a Columbus friend, come on. But it was a unique situation where a couple of years ago, the Columbus Crew owner, who also a partial owner of the Columbus Crew, owns the Cleveland Browns.
Haslam.
The Haslam family. They put something in their contract for their season ticket holders that said that they can have 1 game per season at Brown Stadium. Now, they didn't cash in on it last year. I think they were hoping I think it was possible for the Crew in Miami to meet up in Leagues Cup. I think that was their hope, was to have it there. And that didn't work out. So they didn't have any. Well, now, for the first time, they're coming up north. Interested to see how many people show up. They opened originally when they posted it, they weren't selling the top section of Brown Stadium. Those seats are now open. They made some interesting rules where Crew fans weren't able to transfer or sell their tickets, from my understanding. If you were like a season ticket holder, I think there was something in there. At least that's what I saw online complaining about. I want to see what their supporters group, if they have any special chance for the Haslam family.
That probably wouldn't allow a tifo that's less than agreeable. But
I'm surprised that's not the Sunday night match. By the way, a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
There are no Sunday night matches, by the way, this weekend. So I'm surprised that
Easter.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
And it's WrestleMania weekend. You can't have a Sunday match when you can't go up against WrestleMania.
Yeah, but it's a 4:30 kickoff, by the way.
That's wild.
Yeah,
like at least make it the nighttime one. One of the nighttime ones.
It would get a little cool. I think they wanted to have some nice weather.
Yeah.
I haven't even checked to see what the weather's going to be, but it's going to be on the lake, so it's going to be colder than where it is everywhere. Like right now, it's 70 degrees here, but I think it's supposed to be like down to the 30s or 40s. Ooh. Oh no, actually, it's nice. It's going to be 60 degrees and rain. Never mind.
Awesome. Perfect football weather.
Yeah, never mind. Scratch that.
Yeah.
I feel like we're working our way through like EAFC, where you're like picking the stadium and then you pick the weather.
Yeah.
What combination is going to suck the most?
Right. Exactly.
Night and rain would be miserable.
Yeah.
On the lake.
No kidding.
But yeah, it should be fun. It should be fun to see the people that travel for it. I want to go around the tailgating areas prior to the game and talk to some of the Crew fans and see how they feel about this, because they want to make this a regular occurrence. And I think the only way that you sell the tickets, the amount of tickets that you want to sell is for Miami, unless another star comes into the league. Because maybe you bring Cincinnati in there, but could you imagine having Columbus and Cincinnati in Cleveland?
Well,
both teams are pissed.
No, absolutely.
Well, Cincinnati's.
Cincinnati, because they have to go further.
Yeah, 3-hour drive to get all the way up here. Columbus 2 hours. That would be insane. But they want to do it once a year. So if they make some money off of this, that's the main thing. If they make money off this, it's going to be a yearly occurrence. And
well, then the inverse of that,
Miami,
maybe you play one, in in the Bengals stadium, but then that's kind of different because it's not like those ownership groups have anything.
Yeah,
to
they're
do with
different
it.
owners.
Yeah, they don't own. Haslam just wants money.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
I will throw this out there really quick before we jump to the giveaway. Wednesday, obviously our regular Atlanta United show. Y'all come back for that one because we will have an interview with none other than Mr. Dax McCarty himself. So
Dax McCarty. I've heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of him a couple times. I specifically requested, we wanted to request Dax this week because
Chaos.
Wait, what? I totally missed it.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Right.
He's the closest removed from Atlanta United. And to be fair, even since he was here like months ago, a lot's changed. But it'll be curious to get his insight, especially coming off this 3-game homestand. So Wednesday, 7:00, y'all be there. It'll be super fun. I'll have a good time with Dax, and we'll get y'all prepped for this away trip up to Philly.
He's already made some comments about this team, and go over that as well.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Indeed. All right. Giveaway time.
Let's see if I can get this working.
All right, here we go.
One shot did not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You better.
Can you see it?
Hey, keep going. No, we can't see
We
it.
cannot.
Hold, please.
I got it. I had to turn it on.
Oh.
Ooh, that's not what we did. There we go. All right. Are you clicking the spin?
I'll click it.
Or
All right.
pressing Control Enter?
Whoever wins, we will reach out to you so that we can get Sweetwater to send you the tickets.
Yes.
I'm nervous.
Do it.
1, 2,
Click
3.
it.
Spin,
Let's
spin,
see.
spin.
We could have made the spin go like 7 minutes if we wanted to.
Nate Ward. Nate
Nate
Ward, congratulations. You win 2 tickets to this 2 VIP tickets to Sweetwater's 420 Fest, April 18th through the 20th at Pullman Yards here in Atlanta.
VIP.
Congratulations. Nate, we'll reach out to you and we'll make sure that Sweetwater sends you the tickets.
Yep.
Now the next one we're going to raffle off is Sydney's going to come and clean your house.
Get Tyler to do it.
No,
Why don't
I'm
you
not the
do
one
it?
that talked about reskeeting. I'm not doing that.
I come in and there's chaos.
Yeah.
But no,
Right off the bat.
congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you to Sweetwater for the opportunity to give away the tickets. If you've never been to 420 Fest, I mean, it's an iconic Atlanta festival at this point. It's super cool. And the VIP tickets, they're there all 3 days. You can go in all 3 days. And also from a soccer perspective, you get to sit down in a nice cozy area and watch Atlanta play. We'll see what happens. Philadelphia Union on Saturday night. And you also have lots of artists that are only going to be there for the VIP stage. So, I mean, there's tons of benefits. So, Nate, congratulations.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing more giveaways soon.
You know who I'm shocked wasn't at 420 Fest?
Who was?
Afro Man.
I see what you did there.
I wouldn't be surprised if.
Is it because he got high?
I hung out with him once.
I think this was like one of the very first stories that you told, like in the post-credit scene.
It was. I came home and like I couldn't wash the smell off of me if I wanted to. It stuck to me.
I'm sure it did.
my eyes didn't go back to normal until the next week. It was a fun ride.
I remember being in 5th grade, and that was like the jam. That song was on all the time.
I play that all the time at bars because I just want to see what people's reactions. Like if you see my top 5 plays like on Touch Tunes, it's really embarrassing. There's Celine Dion's in there, Afro Man. I know how to party.
Avril Lavigne. No.
Yeah,
or Clone.
She might be up there.
Maybe the clone version.
Pre-cloned version of that.
That's fair. All right.
Shall we roll the credits here?
Sorry for this is what I do. I come on and I cause chaos. I apologize for that. But congratulations, Nate Ward.
Yes.
Well done, Nate.
And the rest of y'all, patreon.com/scarves and spikes.
And you're muted now. You're not talking anymore.
Oh, sorry. Mathematically, it didn't work out, Bruno. But yes, patreon.com/scarves and spikes. You get extra entries to all the giveaways. So
I might have shorted him one on accident. I apologize, Bruno.
no, you didn't.
Maybe I did. I don't know. What are you going to the 420 Fest?
Well, it's my anniversary, so more
This
than
isn't
likely not.
Mm.
But things may change. Maybe we decided the last. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. I'd like to see Cypress Hill.
Yeah.
But like those bands that have like one song that you really know of, like I just want them to play it over and over again. Like you go up there and just be like, play Because I Got High, but do it again and do it again. And,
Yeah.
and some bands actually do that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I need to rewind.
Those are called one-hit wonders.
Oh, yeah, we should have a one-hit wonders conversation.
That'd be
90s had so many of them. So many of them.
fun.
All right.
Plenty of them out there.
Monday Night Raw's on. I gotta go, guys.
All right, have fun.